Hi, this is Peter Lobred doing my presentation or the recorded video to accompany the presentation for BADM 705 901 in the DBA curriculum. The title of my paper and research is A Matter of Trust, Whether to Rebrand or Stay the Course in the Wake of a Company Crisis. And so I'm going to follow along with the slides that I've uploaded. And just what I would say in terms of considering this is, I've been doing a lot of work in rebranding. That's been a lot of the study and focus that I've had is whether it's the best ways to rebrand, the best considerations to rebrand, when to rebrand a company, and what that means and what leads to success. And so, in considering this particular idea that I've been fleshing out for the paper and the presentation, and ideally the dissertation, it's following a company crisis, damage to reputation, and more. Is it ideal for that organization to rebrand, start anew, start fresh, or is it more ideal in the eyes of consumers to stay the course, to sort of dig down, reinforce your values, and go that way? So again, it's rebrand and start anew versus reinforce. And in this study, as I look at slide 2, just after the title slide, so we'll examine the brand and the related favorability, and determine, as I said, whether it's stronger or ultimately undermined by a full rebrand of the name and logo. In this particular case, we're looking at a health insurance company, fictitious, but we're looking at a health insurance company that's faced a crisis and certain damage to reputation. And then the research is going to tell us from the perspective of consumers, we want to evaluate and understand what that optimal organizational response is. So the contribution we're looking to make here is it worth the overall effort and expense for a company to rebrand? Or would they actually be better off doubling down and reinforcing those core values for the past, present, and future? From producing a managerial relevant look at rebrands is what we're opting to do, and whether or not it's a good step to rebrand when that misstep or crisis and damage to reputation has occurred. And then also, we're pursuing the potential for an interesting new finding with respect to the validity of changing or staying the course. And I'll expand a little bit on that component of staying the course, which I believe is a gap and something that is a contribution here that has not occurred in past studies and similar research. I'll also expand on the fact that the information integration theory is being extended in a new context in the work that I will elaborate on. So the literature review, 3 theories to bear in mind. Dual process theory is saying that processing can be quick, it can occur quickly, but it also can occur from repetition and being familiar, seeing something many times. So it's a blend of stimulus, of presentation, and repetition. Cue utilization theory is another one to draw from here, and that is that certain cues will trigger a response, and that can happen often in a short amount of time. And then, as I said, the focal point of information integration theory means these multiple components are coming together to form a holistic response, a single, sometimes rapid reaction to what's been viewed. Specific to crisis, existing literature, and again, expanding on the literature review, existing literature has focused on the primary and secondary crisis response strategies and given guardrails, serving almost as guardrails to organizations that face such a crisis. One quote, I'll read this as a quote from authors Ahmad and Shari in 2017. The findings of this study can be guidance for the practitioners in structuring the rebranding after the crisis. Rebranding is the strategy which will help the organization to rebuild the loyalty of the customers. That's what I'm addressing in the sense that I believe there's a gap there. that beyond the theory and past literature, the topic it's focused on how to rebrand following a crisis and not whether to rebrand following a crisis. What we're looking at here further is whether to rebrand and whether that is truly the best step versus, again, staying the course. So just as we look into the research questions or get into the research questions, we are going to address or seek to address that current gap between the new and sticking with the old, research to cover the consumer response to the not just to the rebrand, but also toward that newly introduced entity, and whether it'd be better off just staying with doubling down to reinforce the old organization. Those research questions that I alluded to, then question one, in the face of a broad enterprise crisis, will a rebrand signify a positive fresh start, or will consumers instead believe that the company is hiding from its problems, and presumably such an effort would backfire? And the additional question of ultimately then, is the company better served in staying the course with its current identity? The hypotheses that will be tested as a result. Hypothesis one is the introduction of a new name and logo rebrand will result in lower favorability ratings toward the company that has recently undergone a public crisis and damaged a reputation as compared to the ratings of those participants who witnessed the company stay the course. So again, hypothesis one is the rebrand resulting in lower favorability ratings. Hypothesis two, the perception of whether the company is being honest, transparent, and sincere will serve as a mediator to influence the response of the company and the favorability rating assigned to that response. So it's that transparency and sincerity serving as a mediating variable. Hypothesis three, the unchanged logo and presumed stay the course message and approach, that will be viewed in a more trustworthy light than the full name and logo rebrand in the aftermath of the company's crisis and its response. So that stay the course existing brand getting the higher favorability ratings. In terms of the proposed data and approach, the data collection process, we're looking at 100 respondents from a university, similar course of study, seniors that would be a similar age and experience. 50 would view the rebrand, 50 would stay the course, and then they judge favorability on a 7-point Likert scale. So if you think of this as a few steps, and I have this as my proposed data slide, you have step one, participants complete this individually. They go on to step of an introductory screen, a controversy screen, which is information about a lawsuit against this health insurance company, this fictitious health insurance company, Care Health Insurance, that they see. They are introduced to Care Health Insurance as, its history, who it was. That's in step two. Step three, they are told about the lawsuit. Step four, they are asked, what did Care Health Insurance do next? And then step five is going to be 5A, that reinforce and stay the course message. 5B would be the rebrand and shift to the new brand. And then step six, the measurement. And step seven would be the just open feedback as well. And again, that's on my proposed data slide, and also expanded upon more in depth in the paper itself. The statistical methodology and variables that we're looking at, independent variable is the response from a fictitious organization. In this case, it's Care Health Insurance, following a well-publicized lawsuit. So that's independent variable of rebrand versus reinforce. The dependent variable is the participants' favorability ratings toward the company on a 7-point Likert scale. And then the mediator within the research is the trustworthiness or sincerity of the response as perceived by the participants, and likely has an influence on the favorability rating that they would assign. So if you go back to thinking about moving to a rebrand versus staying the course from the two groups of respondents, and you have Care Health Insurance that they're introduced to. This is my slide that shows the hypothetical logos of the organizations. Um, Existing Care Health Insurance, you know us, you know who we are, a legacy of trust, if you will. Um, the scandal or the crisis, the lawsuit that they settle, and then going down to staying as Care Health Insurance versus, different course of action, moving to this new company, Wellness Health Insurance, and then utilizing the average favorability scores from either brand decision for my methodology. The results come down to just a comparison of the average favorability scores to determine whether the hypotheses have been proven true. I offer on, it's slide 11, that's my results slide. I offer an abbreviated version. It's not all 50 rows, obviously, but of what it would look like, what scale favorability 1 to 7, Care Health Insurance Group on the left, Wellness Health Insurance Group on the right, and what those scores might look like as purely hypothetical, partial sample scoring, as I note. So thinking about this, and what my next steps would be, one would be further development with my advisors, talking it through with them, looking a little bit more at the theoretical components of this. I definitely want to consider additional potential variables, whether it's control variables, whether it's mediating, moderating variables, just sort of look at, while I want to, as I mentioned on the slide, keep it straightforward and be fairly clear in the approach. I also want to make sure that this has statistical significance, that I'm reducing any potential for error in the findings, and then ultimately would be the final step of getting approval from the university, conducting the experiment, and looking at the results that I get. Just feel like this always had an interest in this program in rebranding and what that means, but also have a background in that, have a background in communications and crisis communications, and so really be curious to see, hey, what does the data back up in terms of whether to rebrand or not, and how that creates trust among consumers. So appreciate the feedback, particularly on those next steps, as I mentioned, and thank you very much for listening along.